Jason Voorhees is arguably the biggest slasher in history. His face is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of horror. But for every iconic performance of a slasher comes their demise. Which brings me to today's video. Today I'm gonna rank every Jason death there is. Now there is some exceptions. Some I have removed, some I have added on. Let me explain. We have of course the original, Drowning. We have Friday the 13th Part 2, Big Drowning. Friday the 13th Part 3D. Friday the 13th Final Chapter. My first removal is Friday the 13th A New Beginning, because it wasn't Jason. Then we have the iconic Jason Lives, where we see Tommy Jarvis and Jason battle yet again. And then we have the New Blood, which has 2 entries in this. Let me explain. We all know the movie's ending when Tina's dad pops out of the water, bear hugs Jason like he's Hulk Hogan, and drags him down to the water. The reason I have another addition is a what if scenario. You take a look at this picture right here of what could have been. Now in this instance where Tina's father is more decayed, he's more zombie-like, I'm gonna imagine this world where they actually had some sort of struggle, some sort of fight scene. And I was even debating on having a 3rd entry from the New Blood, but I was like, nah, 2 is enough. For those who don't know, there's a very rare deleted scene which I will showcase right here. Not many people know about this alternate ending that was never used. But at the end of the day, since we're not using that one, I can express my feelings for it. It's garbage. We've seen that 1,000 times, man. Like, just come on. Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason Goes to Hell also has another entry in this. Because if you have not seen the alternate ending, it is leaps and bounds better than the original. I mean, just compare the 2 side by side. Those little demons pulling Jason down is creepy. Those hands are creepy, but they just don't have the spiciness, the spicy meatball, you know? Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and then the 2009 reboot. Now let's look at the categories. The best category there is Camp Blood Killer, which is the GOAT of Jason's demise. The almighty cinematic ending that defines Jason's journey. Whether Jason gets his ass whooped, he comes back for one last hurrah in a jump scare, it doesn't matter. This is the epitome of what you want to see in a Friday the 13th movie when Jason dies. Category number 2, Voorhees Boy. You're probably wondering why I named it that. Me being a hip hop head, Kendrick Lamar had this verse and he says, Jason Voorhees Boy, and that's always stuck with me. It's something I say on occasion, so I was like, you know what? This is very fitting. I'm gonna throw that in there. Before we get started, I want to state this. Since there's 4 categories and 13 entries, I'm gonna make it a rule that I have to put at least 3 entries in every category. So in theory, if I love every single one of these deaths, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna force myself to try to abide by these rules and fill in these categories accordingly. So I might have to compromise on one or the other. We'll see. Category number 3 isn't so good. Scooby-Doo-Doo. Not Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo-Doo. For the Jason deaths that just don't quite get it done for you. That's not the absolute worst, but they're at the bottom of the barrel. Lower on the totem pole. Maybe you can accept it, but you don't want to. Category number 4, SARNUYOAAS. Now, if you don't know what that stands for, let me inform you. Shove a rusty nail up your own ass and suffer. If you guys are ready, let's get into this. And as always, let's pick at random. I touch nothing. Alright, and stop. Alright, let's do the New Blood then. And I'll pair these up so we're not bouncing back and forth. And again, before we really dive into this has nothing to do with my opinions on the movies. I'll talk about the movies a little bit, but for the most part, we're talking about the end scene, the death scene. I'm also going to encapsulate the build up to the death as well, but I'm going to try my best to keep that window as narrow as possible. So the New Blood death, I've always had a love-hate for the movie. The build up to the death was pretty cool, especially when Tina has these X-Men powers and she's just whooping Jason's ass left and right. I mean, as badass as Kane Hodder portrayed Jason for the first time in this film, he could not get a one-up on Tina. I'm talking about every which way. He was getting Hogan's leg drop. He was getting the rock bottom. He was getting the stone cold stunner. He was getting the FU. And then you think that Jason really might be gone when the house explodes. We of course know that's not the case. I feel like the ending of New Blood is a huge missed opportunity. Because if you're really gonna go this power route, she has powers and she can move stuff with her mind and she can bring people back from the dead apparently. There really should have been a longer segment, a showdown between Tina's dad and Jason. But the fact that we only got a little bit of substance and Tina's dad jumping up out of the pier, grabbing Jason and then going down, and then the movie goes off. Taking such a different direction in a Friday the 13th franchise up to this point, I feel like this is the ending that you do not need. If you're gonna dive into this weirdness and head this new direction, I feel like you need to go balls to wall and do it. So I have no choice but to put this and shove a rusty nail up your own ass and suffer. I can tolerate the movie, I really do enjoy the movie, But the ending for me, But now, let's talk about the what if scenario. Imagine if this is the ending we got, right? Imagine if Tina's dad would have came up. Throwing this photo up here again, you can look just how much detail and how much they actually was working towards a different kind of ending. And I know there's stories about like the MPAA cutting this movie down and whatnot, what have you. They had to work with whatever they was given, whatever they could do. And I understand that. But there comes a point where you have to say, hey, this isn't gonna fly. I'm not gonna settle. This is my movie, this is my vision. Okay, maybe we can compromise on this and this and this, but I'm not gonna scratch my whole idea and take it back. So imagine a purely zombified version of Tina's dad pulling Jason down, and they have this big old fight, just like they did in Jason Lives with Tommy Jarvis and Jason, when Jason got pulled down and shackled by chains. But they're having this all-out brawl, because Jason's undead, he's undead. Of course, I think Jason's gonna be a little bit stronger, but this dude now has the longevity of a zombie. He can take those hits, rip his arm off, he can still give him that left. You know what I mean? So much could have happened with this. So much could have happened. And the fact that they didn't capitalize or they couldn't capitalize is a really missed opportunity. But however, I do think it would have been way better than what we got. So I'm going to put this in Scooby-Doo-Doo. Next. And Jason X. Wow, let's talk about this. Jason X is another one of those endings where I feel like it is fitting for the movie, even though I necessarily don't like it myself. We could talk about when he got frozen and died, when he got decimated with bullets and got blown up. I could have talked about that. But let's just talk about the definitive death of Jason in this movie. First of all, Sergeant Brodsky came in clutch. Just when you think that Sergeant was down for the count, he's like, you know what, dude? I ain't hear no bell. We're about to duke this out one more time. And the fact that he sacrificed himself and the shot of him and Jason re-entering the earth and burning up like that is really cool. And I've always loved the end scene with Jason's mask just by itself is falling back into Camp Crystal Lake. And then you see the lovers down there seeing the shooting star and then going to investigate. And insinuating that Jason is of course going to be alive and is going to gut them like a fish.
I'm gonna gut you like a fish.
Is it impactful? Was it scary? At the end of the day, no, I don't think so. But I do feel like it was justified. So I'm going to put this in Scooby-Doo-Doo. But I am going to put him above him, since this is factual and this is something I just made up at the top of my mind. Next. And stop. Jason Voorhees. Friday the 13th Part 3D. Now this is the ending I love talking about. This has to be one of the most iconic endings in the Friday franchise ever. I mean, the build up is good. The fact that Chris was able to pull out all the stops and try to be one step ahead of Jason in that barn scene. The first time I watched that as a child, even to this day, it's so enjoyable. But I remember being so antsy for her. Because the first thing she does when Jason walks in is, of course, she's on top of one of those raptors and falls down on him. And then she gets a moment of grace from the biker, but it doesn't pan out. But the fact that Jason got hung in that movie, and that shot is one shot that just, I don't know how the hell they pulled that off. I don't know how the stunt actor didn't break his dang neck. And that grunt he does, so brutal, so terrifying. And then once Chris opens the doors, he's just swinging there menacingly, right? And then of course it's not done. And to top it all off, showing his superhuman strength of pulling himself up with one arm, taking the mask off, and then smiling. Could you imagine the day you would see Jason Voorhees in this franchise smile at you? That's something nobody ever really talks about, and it just baffles me that everybody really overlooks that detail. Jason's smiling at you. And then it gets the iconic axe to the head, where we get the famous axe mark in the mask. And then he finally falls victim and then dies. One of the best Jason demises ever to happen on screen. Next. And stop. Okay, Jason Takes Manhattan. This movie right here has one of my favorite portrayals of Jason, like really cosmetically. I love the way he looks. I love how rejuvenated he is, how energetic he is. This movie in itself is very strange. If you try to fit this movie into the timeline, it's really kind of hard to do. I mean, it's possible, but sometimes you gotta ask yourself, is this movie even canon sometimes? There's this very weird paradox between boy Jason and adult Jason, and that comes to play in the ending. Disclaimer, I fucking hate this ending. The concept of this ending is really cool. You have Jason Voorhees going after Rennie and Romeo through New York, Times Square, and I love the fact that Jason had the predator sense of just ignoring everybody else because he wanted to kill them and only them. If somebody got in his way, yeah, he's tossing them in the mirrors, no problem. And then you got Jason being electrocuted, but the ending of this is just, I think it's a slap in the face to the audience, honestly. This is one thing I also don't see anybody talk about in the franchise. Jason speaking in this film. Now I'm gonna show a very short clip here, and you can feel free to disagree with me or agree with me, but either way, to me, it's just a stupid decision. Now here we go. Now watch this. How is this brutal ass Jason gonna yell mommy like he's scared and then throw up and then die by acid in the sewer? It's not even the fact that I don't like the whole sewer aspect, because I don't mind it. If there's some kind of acid in there that can legit eat you away, I think that's a brutal death for Jason. I can get behind that. But the fact that this movie, throughout this hour and a half runtime, has this weird paradox between kid Jason and adult Jason really shines in this ending. And you can try to argue that Jason didn't say mommy in this ending. But let me play this clip one more time and watch his mouth move. Mommy. 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 Even if it wasn't real, having Jason say boyishly mommy, you portray Jason be just a savage slasher going out in New York City and stopping at nothing to get his prey. And then you end it like this? Nah, screw that, dog. I'm gonna have to put this and shove a Russian nail up your ass and always suffer. Terrible ending. Terrible. Disgusting. Next. And what I'll end on. Okay. Jason Goes to Hell. Let's talk about the two entries of Jason Goes to Hell. As much as I don't like Jason Goes to Hell as a film, I love the ending for pretty obvious reasons. And this is besides the whole Freddy vs. Jason setup, and we'll talk about that last. That automatically almost puts it on a pedestal by itself. This ending had Jason being rebirthed after this creature crawled into old girl's cooch, into her and Jason's back. He's pissed, he's built, he's better than ever, right? The showdown scenes of him trying to kill Steven is terrifying. Do you guys remember the scenes where Jason's just sitting there reaching at him? It's like... There's a deleted scene of that in Jason Goes to Hell that expands upon that scene. And the fact that Jake speared Steven out the window. I mean, this is awesome. And then for a short while, they legit have hand-to-hand combat. But the main thing I want to talk about in this version right here, of course, old girl runs up with the dagger. And that's when Steven gets the upper hand. Every time he punches Jason, lights fly out, like souls fly out of his mask, and souls are shooting out of him. And then Steven just goes ham like blah 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 blah. He puts that Jackie Chan pushes that dagger in him, and then this portal opens up, and then these hands come grab Jason and pulls him down the hell. The fact that these hands are literally dragging Jason down the hell is pretty rad. The predator sense of Jason and what he did trying to get to Steven. So I'm gonna put this Voorhees boy. Now let's talk about the alternate ending, because I think this is one of the most underrated endings of any Friday film. If you look at the deleted scenes, the scenes are longer, you get more Jason. And one thing this movie did that I love is showing the old Voorhees house where Jason grew up as a kid. At the end of the day, this movie sucks, but I think that the later portion of this movie leading up to the ending is very important when it comes to like the lore of Jason Goes to Hell. Where it tries to fit into the timeline is it canon? If it is canon, does it explain all this? I like digging into stuff like that. These demons right here, rather than the hands, but these full-blown little demons pulling Jason down to hell really amplifies the scene for me. Times 2, maybe even times 3. I don't know why in the world they decided to change this ending. Clearly the design of these demons are leaps and bounds above just those giant ass hands. There's something seriously sinister about that scene right there, and I just wish it would have made the final cut. You top all that off with Freddy's glove coming up and grabbing Jason's mask down the hell. So I have to go Voorhees boy. And I'll put this one over that one. Next. And stop. What is that? Okay, Jason Lives. The showdown between Tommy Jarvis and Jason Lives is some of the best cinematic work in the entire franchise.
No, I don't want to! You can't make me goddamn! I'll beat your ass!
When Jason walks into that water, nonchalantly, and then he disappears, and then Jarvis is in that boat with the chains like, oh my god, where did he go? I'm screwed. You had the fire to that? Man, that's just like a freaking Inferno match in the WWF days. That's what this feels like. That's how badass this is. And once you think Tommy's down for the count, old girl comes in there and saves the day. And then she's like, you know what? If you want to cut people up, I'm gonna cut some people up. Seeing Jason's face just being grinded with that propeller, just being grinded on and grinded on like he's at some club in Atlanta and this chick's wanting some tips. The grind. Very climatic. The fight scene is awesome. It's antsy. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat. There is no doubt where this has to go. This is going in Camp Blood Killer. Okay, next. And stop. Okay, let's go. The final chapter, my favorite Friday movie of all time. The showdown between Tommy, Jason, and Trish in this is one that I still love to this day. I rewatch it every year. It's heavy in my rotation. That will probably never change. You get the chase scene with Trish and then her jumping out the window, running back to Tommy. And the fact that Trish had to sit there and try to face Jason by herself because Tommy's upstairs, you know, getting a little San Andreas hairdo.
Oh shit, here we go again.
And I mentioned this once before. The first 4 films really showcase this mysterious side of Jason, on how Jason's mind works, how mysterious it can be, what his ultimate goal is. Because once he looks at Tommy, he stops what he's doing. He just walks up to him, tilts his head like damn, that was once me. I was once an ugly motherfucker. But even in the sense that, you know, when Trish went back to the house and Jason jumped through the window and grabbed Tommy, then he busts through the door and then he gets impaled by the machete. Then he falls down into the machete and it goes deeper, you know, like deeper. That's what she said. It's pretty obvious, guys. This has to go in Camp Blood Killer. So I got 4 left, so one of these is gonna have 4, but I have to put each one in the lower 3 categories. So this is gonna be interesting. Let's see what's next. And stop. Okay, Friday the 13th Part 2. There's a base of what a chase scene should be with Jason, especially in the earlier films. This one in particular it's so unique in its own aspect. In multiple scenes, you see Jason legit running at Jenny looking for her, like she's ducking behind and you're trying to get the one up on him. The chase scene aspect in this film is a different breed, like it really is. One of my favorite parts of this movie is when Paul and Jenny go in that cabin and Jenny's like, Paul, there's somebody in this fucking room. And then they have a struggle and all that. Jenny goes big brain mode, uses her cheat codes, throws on Pamela's sweater, tries to throw him off a little bit. And it did buy her time. And then Paul comes, saves the day, and then he gets impaled. But we then get the iconic scene of Jason going in there, busting through the window and grabbing her. Now, whether that's a dream sequence, we may never know. What happened to Paul? I don't know. He probably got tired of Jenny not giving it up. So he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna risk my life for this hillbilly dude out here. I'm gonna go to town back to the bar with Ted. I'm gonna have a good time. It's a great ending to the movie. It's fitting, but at the same time, I find this ending as basic as you can go. Like, it's just your basic Friday ending. So I'm gonna have to put this in Scooby-Doo-Doo. Next. And stop. Well, I was way off. And stop. Okay, the original. The only substance we get is a flashback scene of how Jason died as a kid. Now, dying this way has to suck because in my mind, this is how I pictured it went down, right? There's 2 camp counselors up there and this girl just getting freaking railed from the back, just getting decimated by this dude. Probably has the Kevin Bacon hairdo, you know, has a whistle around his neck. And he's probably just going American Psycho with the whistle. Thinking he's the ish because he just got some But hell, he might have been a 5-pump chump. 2 seconds and gone. But I can only imagine Jason. He's just like, help, help. Hey, you motherfuckers, help, help. And all he sees in the woods behind the bush where the camp counselors are, is that the bush is just going,
Yeah. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, that has to be a terrible way to die. But I'm sorry, Jason. There's not a lot to work with here. Your death is iconic. You have become a town legend. Just for now, this might change. I'm going to put it in Scooby-Doo-Doo. Next, Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy vs. Jason has grown on me a lot the last couple of years. Do I like the movie? Not really. However, the second half is some of the greatest horror scenery that the fans has ever gotten. The fight scene between Freddy vs. Jason, that whole aspect of it, it was just top notch. Seeing Freddy and Jason going blow for blow, to the point where it's just a complete bloodbath. They're bleeding everywhere. Freddy gets his arm ripped off. Jason gets his fingers cut off. I mean, you name it. And then Freddy walking along that pier with the machete and you think it's Jason at first and it's not. You know, Freddy's got that machete up there. He's like, oh, you about to get it, bitch. And then Jason pops out of the water with Freddy's own arm and impales Freddy with it. With his own shit. I mean, why wasn't that energy throughout the rest of the film? Great fight scenes, great build up, great ending, and then you get the iconic scene of Jason coming out with Freddy's head. To me, this has to go Voorhees. And last but not least, let's talk about the remake, the last Friday film we have gotten at the time of this recording, thus far. They kept it traditional with this ending. I love the chase scene in this as well. This is one of my favorite versions of Jason. I love this Jason. I thought Derek Mears did a great job, and I would have loved to see a sequel to this movie. I enjoyed it that much. And Jared Padalecki being in this movie, me being a huge Supernatural fan, that should give away how I feel about it already. You know, Jason busting through the window and grabbing Jared like that, very reminiscent to part 2. But when Jason got the chain around his neck, and they threw it in the wood chipper, and Jason's just trying not to be decimated and cut into little bitty pieces, my friend. I mean, he's sitting there just getting choked. Then he gets impaled, and then you see Jason's face just looking at you like that. The very end scene is just kind of recycled. You've seen this ending before, but it's still really good. They throw Jason's body into the water, they throw the machete down there, they throw the mask, and then he pops up and tries to grab old girl. I thought it was a great ending for the movie. They didn't need anything spectacular. It was shot well. I thought it left a perfect cliffhanger for a sequel, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of basic. But here's my problem. Let's look at this tier list. The rules are I have to put 3 in every category. I don't have 3 in every category. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put Freddy vs. Jason ending and Camp Blood Killer. I'm gonna put this down here, and I'm gonna put this up here. That just makes sense because I enjoyed Freddy vs. Jason ending enough, just a bloodbath and everything they done. Really exciting, really sold it for me. So I can put that in Camp Blood Killer. The 2009 remake, we have seen that ending time and time again because there's no way that I would have put Kid Jason from part 1 over that ending because for 1, we never saw it, and 2, I mean, he drowned. I mean, it sucks, but he drowned. So ladies and gentlemen, that is my list. Let me know your ranking in the comments. Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Let me know down in the comments. Let's make this a thread. I love talking about this stuff. I answer every comment there is, so I'm excited to see what your polls are. I love you all. Till next time, adios.